That's true. Who are they playing? Right over there. Oh, I know. I have it on my calendar. It looks like I can't. It's like the answer all over the calendar. It's just red. It's bad now.
Presentation.
I think you need one of those bags to go along.
Is your med kit okay?
I didn't want you to knock over your short cake. I passed all these out.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I heard it. I just want to grab our leads, rip them out, bring them on over.
Someone should pay attention.
Yeah, probably one first. That way. Forward, backward. Is there a point in the middle? Yeah, I got it.
I would have scared him to death. Sometime you're going to cut it.
Yeah.
They want your car. Fantastic. 98, 98, 99. Come on. Oh, are you serious? I think it's a 99. I can only yeah. It's got the OBD2 port. It's got to be a 99. Yeah. Because we did a test on it. I'm pretty sure. Hey, they should learn how to work on them all. So, is that really a stipulation?
Yeah,
we can do it if it's over 99 or over.
Yeah.
Alright. I think it is a 99.
Very good. The meeting of the Montoursville Area School District Board meeting Tuesday, May 14th at 2019 at 7:11. Can I have a roll call, please?
So noted, Mr. President.
Salute to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just to let you know, the board had an executive session prior to this meeting in reference to personnel matters. Presentation?
We do have some wonderful presentations. I'm kind of going out of order a little bit, but I would like to invite Lynn Kaiser to come to the mic. And she is going to have wonderful news on the FBLA front with these fantastic students here. So
I do. Thank you.
Tell us.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the board, the administration, and all of you for your support in FBLA, because without you, these students would not have been able to compete at the regional, state, and national level. The students that I have with me tonight placed first in the state in their events. In order to get to states, they had to compete at the regional level, so they competed at Penn College in January. They took a 100-question collaborative test, and they placed first in the region. That brought them to states. States is always in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was in April. The first day they competed, they took another objective test. It was a 100-question collaborative test. And both of the teams placed first. Top 10 teams go on to the final round, but I got the scores, and both of our teams placed first in the state. And that is very impressive. They were up against some big schools that have huge business programs, and I'm very proud of them. So they went on to the final round. The final round, the top 10 teams in the state compete in a performance event. And the two performance events, if you guys would like to come up, the two performance events were management decision making and management information systems. I would like to introduce, first of all, Joey Rogers, Emma Sahanowitz, and Curtis Johnson. They competed in management decision making. They not only were first in the state in their objective test, but they were first in the state in their performance event. Now, I'd like to point out that they were sequestered. So they sat in a holding room until they moved to another room where they got their case study. And they only had 20 minutes to prepare their speech. They gave that speech in front of 5 business people. And after they gave the speech, those 5 business people were able to ask them questions. And they gave me chills. Sincerely, they were awesome. They're not going to be able to give you that exact speech because, like I said, they were sequestered It was impromptu, they got the case study, and they had to give their speech. But I can tell you that they were awesome. And so they're gonna tell you more about it. I'm going to turn it over to them. So you guys go right ahead.
So when we were sequestered, we got a paper, and it gave us the prompt of what we had to talk about. We got told that we were management consultants called in by a trucking company. We only got a little information about the company, such as there was 3 factories and they each did different things, and they just recently got a contract with the military to produce military trucks. Then we were given a bulleted list of management competencies that we were supposed to talk about and put in a little speech. And then after a very short time of sitting in a room, we went and we had to present it. So, so we'll give you a little taste of what it was like. We can't give you the exact prompt because we got it taken away from us as soon as we finished. So we'll just pretend that we're walking in and we'll practice real quick for you guys. So, hi, I'm Emma Sahanowitz.
Daniel Rogers. I'm Curtis Johnson.
And we are very happy to be with you today to talk about your management and how we can help with your new military contract to be able to produce the most efficient way possible. First, we want to talk about how we're going to create a strategic alliance with a local college, a local tech school to be able to pull in more students that are hungry for new jobs to work in our newest factory to really pump out these military trucks.
At the smaller scale factories, we definitely want the engineers to practice and master the art of computer animated design to increase proficiency, and it would increase the main plant and make everything run smoother.
So an important thing with modern companies in today's world, and especially one that's trying to reach a national scale, is diversity. Our company is based in rural Virginia, so diversity is a task that we really have to focus on, pulling and bringing in people from across the country and from the local community with that strategic alliance, training people so that we have enough employees, talented employees to accomplish our goals and allow our company to accomplish our government contract.
We're also going to focus on our management competencies such as planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Those are going to be the main focuses for our management team that we're going to set out into those 3 factories to really make the process as efficient as possible.
Another thing as our company progresses, we need to find a way to become socially responsible, and we can do that by various manners, such as going green to benefit everyone, and that makes more consumers be interested in consuming our product.
Another issue with trucking specifically is the heavy regulations on diesel. So we have to focus on meeting all those regulations, especially as we're trying to become a national company. Things like the DEF fluid and the emission systems, and possibly looking into future technologies with our R&D plant to look at fully electric trucks and hybrid trucks to meet competitors in the future.
And the other bigger risk factor is with a government contract like this, the government can easily pull out. So with the demand of the economy for trucking and the increased online presence of shopping and commerce online, we can then, if the military does pull out of their contract, we can focus our trucking to more local transportation to tap into the e-commerce market. Thank you.
Our second team, I'd like to bring up Braden Cott, Isaac Barrett, and KDC. They competed in management information systems. I'm very proud of these 3. They competed last year and placed 6th in the state, and they were only a couple places away from making it to nationals last year. And they worked extremely hard to get to nationals this year. They spent their lunch periods studying for their objective test, and it paid off. They placed 1st in the state as well. Similar situation. 100-question objective test. First, I got the scores, 1st in the state in their objective test. So they moved on to the performance event. Their performance event was sequestered as well. So again, they're not going to give you the exact same speech that they gave at States, but it will be similar. When they were sequestered, when they went and got their case study, they were given markers and a flip chart. So this is not the flip chart that they had, but it's very similar, and I'm gonna let them take over and explain it to you.
So our job was to propose different information systems that a company could use in order to manage more efficiently. So the prompt we were given was, again, a trucking situation in which there was large freight transport. So we had to come up with different information systems that the company could use in order to make the different components of this business more effective with getting the packages from point A to point B. So we were given that there's 2 warehouses that you can see over there that are the large distribution sites, one in Memphis and one in Hagerstown. And from there, there are 6 smaller distribution sites that would eventually lead to either your final destination or pickup site, and then that goes straight to the consumer.
So the major 3 things we wanted to cover with our management information systems team was tracking, database management systems, and database backup. For tracking, we wanted to install an app which would allow the peace of mind for the consumer to see exactly where their package is, as well as the convenience of that. The item that would power the app would be the barcode, which shows the real time location of the package, as well as the app and barcode would allow the individual lower level shipping companies to join shipping, which would also lower and optimize shipping costs, which would make the business more profitable, and all that is powered by an expert system, which Katie will talk about more.
Yeah, so the expert system that we proposed would kind of, in a way, mock human thinking in order to make it more efficient. So this would be able to go through different traffic routes and to go away from construction so that it can get from point A to point B without having to stop and do those unnecessary stops, so there's greater customer satisfaction. And other database management systems we would like to incorporate would be the decision support system. And this combines other data and models that would be more for lower level use, like your lower level managers, so that they can go into the system and find out where the packages are when their customers have questions and stuff like that. And as far as the upper level use for the executives, we would use the executive support system that uses more data for the top levels, so this would be like your CEOs, that kind of thing, so that they can also get into the system for the communications between other businesses and the consumers to make it more efficient for the company.
So the database backup system is meant to prevent if there was a disaster, say a hacker got in or a natural disaster, we would be able to have all our data backed up. So we would discuss over a contingency plan, which would allow us to because of our 2 main systems at Memphis and Hagerstown, we would be able to back it up and have our servers back online shortly if there was an attack or anything like that. And for firewalls and encryptions, encryption is it allows only an authorized person to let it see, so people who are outside can't get into that and see it, and it keeps the information between them confidential. And the firewall is meant to protect everything on the site so people can't get in illegally. So it's really important to back that stuff up, because if it's not, you're going to lose a lot of stuff, and it could cause the business to lose a lot of money.
That in brief was a presentation. We can include a lot of the details because they were specific to what we were given on the prompt, but that was the main 3 things we covered in our presentation.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you because this is giving them extra practice. Do you think it's bad speaking in front of people your own age, speaking in front of the school board and the community members? That's hard for young people. So thank you for giving the opportunity to do that as well.
We have some certificates for them too before they go.
That was very impressive. I was impressed by every single one of you. If you would come here, we'll have some certificates for Catherine C.
Barrett.
Emma Sahanowitz. Daniel Rogers. And Curtis Johnson.
And I think the board would be remiss if we didn't thank Mrs. Kaiser for all these years.
To the students, I would say that was very impressive. Did you happen to do any presentations on the school budget? Thank you.
We can learn.
Stick around if you
Yeah.
Our next presentation would be Mr. Ken Phillips. Ken is our financial advisor, and he shares information with Brandy on a regular basis. And we felt it was worthwhile bringing Ken in this evening because he's talking about the ability to possibly refinance one of our bonds from 2015.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I should defer my presentation to the students. It's a pleasure to be back. We spent a lot of time. I've had the pleasure of being at Montoursville as the advisor and underwriter for about 25 years. So some of you may have seen me around. But tonight, we normally get together once or twice with the administration throughout the year to talk about just general things, whether it's budgets, you know, what's going on with your budget under Act 1, you know, just general things like that. So last November we got together really with nothing in particular to talk about, just to get together and talk about the debt, the outstanding debt, you know, the finish of the high school project, which I had a chance to tour at that point in time. And there really wasn't anything from a refinancing standpoint to talk about at that point, because interest rates were about 1% higher on November 18th when we met. They were 1% higher than they are today. And the Fed was calling for rates just to go higher. So the chances of refunding something that was at a very low rate anyway, the average rate for the high school debt was about 3.15, which is really remarkable when you take a look at the history of interest rates over the last 56 years. But with the economic situation on the global front, trade wars and things of that nature, interest rates have come down a lot here in the last 2-3 months. And so we began talking with the administration with respect to, you know what, it may make sense just to get in front of the board to not only talk about maybe some debt issues, but you're in the middle of budget season, so, you know, there are times when we're asked, you know, certain questions and, you know, we can give our opinion on. And so that's really the presentation this evening. So board members have the presentation in front of them. I'm going to use a pointer and a clicker maybe for the public who may want to see some things as well. So Brandy, if you can change the first slide. Or, I'm sorry. Let's see, yeah, the corner there. This is just a reflection of interest rates since 1997, okay? And you can see, you know, rates being much higher. I'll see if the pointer works here a little bit. There somewhere, it's not gonna, actually it's not gonna show that well. But on the left side, rates being higher, 97. And then you can see on the far right side, you know, as rates came down through that period of time, and the board members can see easier, but we identify each of the issues for, you know, for the recent refinancings and high school project right in here. And when we got together in November, the line that is, you see the red line, the current 10-year MND at 177, it was 277. So 1% exactly lower today than we were when we got together with Brandy and Christina later last year. Next slide, please, Dan. This is the debt profile. So we have bond issues from and bank loans. We have a combination of both from 2014 through 2017. The highlighted 2015A is the issue that we're going to talk about here with respect to does it make sense to go ahead and do anything. I think the very interesting
observation here is when you look at the footnotes underneath the gross debt outstanding on the left side, you can see that the average yield, which is really your true cost, the average yield is a 199 for the 14 bonds, and then a 314 for the bonds that we're about to talk about. That's a little unique structure that we're going to talk about. And then you see 217, 311, 316. So overall, and Montoursville's always been very good at never borrowing money for the sake of borrowing money. There was always a need, there was always a purpose. The last decade's been very good with respect to borrowing funds. It sometimes hurts the budget as low as interest rates have been. When rates were zero and you're budgeting interest earnings at virtually nothing, okay? That was the decade that we just got, just came from. The last year, you probably were able to make a little money on your interest earnings based off your reserves. And probably this coming year, you'll probably be able to do the same thing. But you've been treated very well on the borrowing side, which is these issues and illustrations are nothing more than a home mortgage. Is pretty much what we have. Next slide, please. So we're going to show you two different things with respect to the 2015 A's. So we're going to start on the left side of the page. This is a unique structure, and I've been doing this 38 years, and really we've done very few structures like this, but we actually did a bank loan, and the bank had a graduated interest rate. So if you went back to 2015, the rate was 165. And then in the next year it was 175. And it gradually got up to 275, and when 2020 goes away, it'll be 3, and then 3 1/4, and then 335, and out to eventually 450. Okay? So we benefited from the very low interest rates, on the original $10+ million loan. And every year the rate's gonna get a little higher. And so eventually we're gonna refund this. The question is when. Okay, what are meaningful savings, locking in rates? Because we know eventually if we don't do anything, you're gonna be paying 3% in 21, 3 1/4 in 23, on out to 450. All right. The middle set, or the middle block, gives you some type of summary stats with respect to what if we did a refunding. So if we did a refunding today, and everything's based on today's rates, and we know rates can change. Since November, they came down 1%, okay? We would be looking at refunding the balance of $9.735 million. We have about $9.9 million to do that, because we have to pay interest, principal, cost to do the refinancing, just like paying points on a mortgage again. The rate would be about a 294, and when you take a look at the present value savings, you're about a little over $300,000, which is 3%. The industry standard is 2%, the minimum industry standard. We like at least 3%. So when the numbers started becoming attractive, we contacted, the administration and said, you know what, it makes sense to at least get in front of the board, talk about different actions that we may be able to take, and then be able to lock something in if we so desire. So that's the middle block. And then the right-hand side, what this illustration represents, and we have one more page after this, but this illustration represents pretty much level savings. So we're going to take the savings and we're going to sort of, spread them out equally, $20-some thousand a year. So there's a reduction on your budget side. The state shares in their based on the reimbursement, that the state gives you for it, they share in that. And then the particular projects for the high school, the net's about 8-9 cents on the dollar. So if you save $1, they're going to save 8-9 cents. So your share is 91 cents or so. So the savings are in that $300,000 range. So on the next page, I'll just go right to the right-hand side because everything's the same in the first two columns. You can see that the way the structure is, we force the savings up front as much as we could. So in 2023-24, you see pretty much the savings are going to accrue there. There are several ways to look at that. One, you can say, okay, the previous slide gives you level, we can maybe have a reduction if we need to in the budget, or that money is going to be used for technology or thrown to capital. Or, depending what the needs are down the road, because I know that there were other studies done, several years ago when the high school study was going on, and there's capital projects that you may need to look at down the road. Getting a shot in the arm, 3, 4, 5 years from now of, $300,000, does that make sense to maybe put the money there? There's no right or wrong answer. It's sort of taking a look into the future and see what you may or may not need. If you look at the lower middle box, it says interest rate sensitivity analysis. This is very sensitive to movement in rates. A 1/4% change. Okay, if rates go up 25 basis points or 1/4%, the savings go from 300 to 100. If they go the other way, you pick up another 100. So it is a very interest rate sensitive situation. So we know we have an issue that's attractive. We're paying $275 for this coming budget year. And then we have 3% and so on. So when it got to the point of maybe doing an issue that sort of locks in where you are now, or going to be next year, it made sense to have this discussion. So with that, I am going to open it up to you for questions on interest rates, on any type of maybe Act 1 budget type things, this presentation, and we can talk after that with maybe where we go.
You're the expert. Are interest rates gonna go up or down?
I was about to point to them, but are rates gonna go up and down? Well, let me state that they were supposed to be higher. If I was standing here today, based off on November, out of 60 economists from the leading banks and who report on Bloomberg every day, rates were supposed to be, the 10-year treasury at the time when we met was about a 3 1/4. It was supposed to be 3.75 today. It's now 2.40. So I may be an expert, just like they are. I do think rates are probably going to go in this level to maybe 50 basis points higher. I don't think unless there's significant movements on global activity, economic activity, and trade situations improve, I don't think you're going to see your rates go very high. The Fed's looking at inflation. While we may see inflation, they don't really see inflation, when you look at the broad side of things. So I do think that rates are going to possibly go a little higher in the long term. I can't see them going a lot lower in the short term. Do I think they can go maybe another 1/4%? Now you're really starting to test lows on the U.S. Treasury 10-year. It's easier. I mean, it's going to be easier for them to go higher than lower.
The talk, though, recently has been the Fed of dropping in 1/4 point, and like you say, that's short term.
They were originally calling for rates the Fed was calling for 7, 8 months ago, 2 or 3 increases this year, which I think they totally backed off of that.
Yeah.
And I do think we're gonna see a reduction. Do I think we see it in June? No. But I do think you're gonna see it in the, probably the July to September timeframe. Interest rates on the borrowing, on the investment side have been great for you. You're making 2 to probably 2.3%, depending on the type of investment. So I could see that being on the lower side from a budget standpoint for interest earnings for you. And we get asked this question all the time, when people are looking at their budgets. I'd probably say I feel safe at 2%. So if your average daily investment balance is $5 million, we'll make the numbers easy, that's $100,000. $7 million investment balance, $1,040,000, $140,000. I wish it was $1,040,000. So, as you go through your budget process, you can probably still budget some interest earnings because the yield curve is basically flat or inverted, meaning that the 2-year and 5-year is, I think, 220 and the 10-year is 240. So it's virtually flat in terms of the yield curve. Okay. One question. Yes, sir.
So is this projected approximately $300,000 savings? Is this after your fees have been deducted?
Yeah, that's after the legal fees. We need to go through the legal process again. We need to get the rating process again, so we have an estimate in for all those that we did on previous transactions.
As far as a couple questions, one would be the impact of our downgrading Standard & Poor's from an A+ to an A. And then the second, with the president in, he's playing hardball with China on his tariff inequities and that. How does that affect this market?
Okay, the tariff inequities, we'll start there first. As long as that discussion is going to be on the table and and you have the fluctuations in the equity markets that we've seen, okay, interest rates will stay low, okay? If you see, agreements and the stock market starts to go the other way, I think that's more of a pressure probably for interest rates because they'll probably be inflationary. All right, first question, with respect to a downgrade, okay, currently we would probably get bond insurance, which is it's just an economic, consideration at the time. A downgrade of one notch from A+ to A is gonna be 5 to 7 basis points, okay? So if 25 basis points is 100 grand, it's 200 grand, 5 is gonna be what, 40? So you're gonna see a reduction that way.
So we would have to pay $40,000 for the bond insurance.
We would, what we would do is we would take a look at, is it the value to get insurance versus non-insurance, and that's purely an economic discussion that we make.
And is that subtracted off this projected?
Yeah. What you're seeing here are the estimates of approximate costs versus savings to you. Yeah. So.
What puts us in a position to have a better rate as far as a bond rating?
Sure. The rating agency's cash is king. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is. You're in a box. They put you in a box with light districts, okay? The way you get to the next box, or to the box below you, is pretty much cash. They take a look at management practices. Beginning in 08, 09, with the crash, they really started focusing after that on management, okay, and how much cash you have. And if it's a decline, if you show a decline every year on your cash balances, because eventually, if you're balancing your budget on a non-reoccurring revenue, and I'll just make a number up. Let's say someone has a $10 million fund balance, and you don't raise taxes in year one because you're going to use $1 million of that 10 million. That's fine, you can get away with it, but guess what? Now the next year you're $1 million in the hole. Okay, so they're really big on reoccurring revenue equaling reoccurring expense. And if you don't do that, they're going to ask you why. And you may say, you know what, we have debt falling off. This is in your situation, but we have debt falling off in 3 years. We have no projects for the next 7 years. We realize we can probably spend. So if you have an answer for them, great, but you better have a pretty good answer for them. Because if they see a continuing spend without raising the revenue stream, they're going to probably ding you, okay? So cash is king. It's as simple as that. But I would say, in doing this for 38 years, cash is king, it's important. But also, as a board member, which I've never been, okay? You also then need to weigh, okay, how much should we have? What is reasonable, okay, and prudent for the future? Versus can we use at times maybe some money, and maybe we get a bounce in interim real estate, something like that.
The law states how much of that cash is king that we can have.
Right, it does. That's right.
So as long as you're at that level, it shouldn't hurt the bond rating, right?
No, the bond rating, they don't care what Pennsylvania law is, okay? They pretty much take a look at the size of your budget, the size of your reserves, and you're well within that. And then you have, and I'm not an accountant, but you have then designated funds that, could be, it's assigned and unassigned. And so you may have assigned funds that may be for pension or for capital reserve. So that doesn't really count toward the state. Is that correct, Randy? So you may meet the state's obligations on unassigned, but then also have this pot over here. And the rating agencies look at that in the aggregate. So they understand you need to stay within state guidelines. And most districts also then have some other type of assigned funds that capital reserve, pension, health, those are the big ones that I normally see. So depending on, and I'll just, depending where you wanna go with this, okay? Here's what needs to happen. Your solicitor works with the bond counsel, we put together the resolution. You adopt the resolution. The resolution is called a parameters resolution. So we set forth parameters. We set forth maximum rates, 6%. We know we're not gonna issue something at 6%, but it's really nothing but a filing at the state. And then you could set a minimum target level of savings. Let's say we want it to be 3%. And you say, we wanna save 300 grand, okay? So we could go ahead and we can get ready, we can do all the legal work and get that put aside. And if we think we'd be the chance of getting that, okay, or have the chance of getting that, we then start the rating process. Bank loans not gonna work. The recent tax code change as of effective 1/1/18, bank corporate rate tax rate went from 35 down to 21. So while we probably did on average maybe 25% of the loans in the year on a bank basis, very seldom is that. I mean, I've done less than a handful here in the last 2 years. And you can't blame them because they're not getting the same tax benefit on your bonds. Doesn't mean we won't ask, but I doubt we're gonna get the same type of treatment. So what happens, we adopt the parameters resolution, and then that's filed with the state. And then what would happen is we would, when we're close, or when we think we may have a market that we can achieve it, we'll start, let's say, the rating process. There's no expense to you except for the ad in the paper, but once you start the rating process, the clock starts ticking with them, okay? If the issue doesn't happen, and we've had this where the market moves against you, you can't hit your target, we either discuss, okay, what type of target, do we want to adjust the target? Because the rating's good for 90 days. If you don't do anything, they're gonna charge you 60% of the fee, which is gonna be probably 15 grand. All right, so that's the only expense. You're not gonna have any expense from the legal side, you're not gonna have any expense from our side, you're not gonna have any expense in printing official statements, getting banks to serve as paying agents. All that only happens if the issue actually is completed. The timing on doing that resolution, since it's really the only cost is really doing the ad, I would probably say, if this number is attractive to you, we'll do it at one of your next couple meetings. And if it's, you can set whatever parameters you want. Some people like to set a target amount, and others sort of leave it up to the administration. Because what you don't want to do is, let's say we set it at, and I'm just gonna use 300. Let's say it goes down to 250, and it's hanging there and hanging there and hanging there, and then there's wind that maybe rates are gonna go the other way. You don't want it to come back to you again and say, okay, we said, 300, we're not there, we haven't been there. So, sometimes we're silent on the savings. Sometimes we put a percentage in. If we like 3 and 2 is the minimum, maybe we do 2.5. Doesn't mean we need to execute there because we're gonna strive for something higher, but it keeps us from coming back and having to redo something. Questions on this, questions on, Mr. Ruffing was saying about the budget presentation, they left, I was hoping they were gonna.
Yeah, I was hoping they could help out.
Yeah, so, but I'm happy to answer any questions on that, or at least give you my opinion. I'm not sure I'll have the right answer for you, but I can give you my opinion. But it's always a pleasure to be here. I enjoy coming up, and thank you for your time tonight.
Would the board like to move forward with the resolution? Okay.
Why don't we get with the administration, we'll work on some dates, we'll work with you and council, we'll have that conversation, and we'll be back.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank
You
you.
bet. Have a nice night.
Appreciate it, Ken.
You bet.
We're gonna proceed to public comment. So if you come to the podium, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes. Nobody? All right. Not here. Sorry. This manager's report.
The pastor's actually moderating an elders meeting tonight. I think he double booked himself tonight.
That's why I didn't see him, so I just scooted on. So.
So the treasurer's reports from the period ending April 30th, 2019 for the general fund, cafeteria fund, and capital projects. We are submitting these to your board for your consideration and approval.
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, ayes have it.
You have received copies of the budgetary transfer for the period ending May 14th, 2019 for the general fund. We are submitting these to the board for your consideration of approval.
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
You received copies of a listing of invoices for the general fund and cafeteria fund for the period ending May 14th, 2019. We are submitting these to the board for your consideration of approval and payment.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Can I have a roll call, please?
I have a
I'm sorry,
question.
question.
Randy, we're back to professional tech services being 77 bills that we have no idea what those bills are for, other than professional tech services.
Any questions? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Albert?
Yes.
Dr. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Kunkel?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yeah.
Mrs. Marriott?
Yes.
Mrs. Mathers, or Dr. Mathers?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffing?
Yes.
Mr. Schimmel?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes.
We'll move on to the budget presentation.
Since the budget presentation is gonna take a while, we need to back up and approve the minutes from the last
I'm
meeting.
sorry. All right, may I have approval for the April 9th and April 23rd board meetings?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? Thank you, Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Randy, you're up.
Alright. I'm going to clicker. Tonight we're going over the proposed final budget. This is the proposed final budget. There will be changes to the final budget. One thing to remember, once this proposed final budget is approved this evening, the millage rate cannot go up, it can only go down. Tonight we're gonna be reviewing a lot of slides that we have already looked at, but I want to leave it in the same format so that you are familiar with it. So, we're gonna look at revenue, where our revenue comes from, the local sources, the state sources, and the federal sources. We'll start with local revenue is money generated, produced, collected within the boundaries of the district, 56.1%. This is monies coming from everyone that lives within our district. We'll start with the current real estate taxes. And as you'll see, the format that I used tonight here, I just wanna point out, is I have the budget that was presented on March 26th, in the first column, and what we have revised it to for the 1920 budget currently. So if we look at the local real estate taxes, affluent index would allow us to go to the maximum real estate millage increase of 15.86. After speaking with some board members, there was some, concern, they only wanna go up a little bit. So we have adjusted that down to 15.7, which will give us an increased total local revenue of $213,000, as you can see here. Okay. Interim real estate taxes, we have left the same at 25,000. The public utility real estate taxes, we've left the same. I'm just gonna go go over the ones that we've changed. The earned income tax, we have increased that to 3.6 million. We are still seeing a little bit of a trend, approximately 3.5% we're up over last year. So I think budgeting at 3.6, we're seeing the upward trend right now. We're good with continuing budgeting that for next year. Real estate, transfer taxes, over the last few years, we had seen an increase of that, and I think by increasing that, another $5,000, we should be good there. Delinquent real estate taxes, we have increased that to $485,000, which gives us an increase of $15,000 there. We have been seeing less turned over, but we should be able to maintain steady at the $485,000. At the investments on earnings, we will see at $120,000, which is an increase of $20,000 there. And after just listening to Ken Phillips' presentation, as we were sitting here, I did pull up. I had reached out to Mike Stramera at PeaceLab, our banking company that we use for all of our investments, and asked him to provide me with our average daily balance. He then worked with me in creating a spreadsheet where I could punch in what the interest rate would be for the year approximately, and what our approximate earnings on investments would be. And Mr. Phillips had just stated he's thinking right around 2% right now based on what's going on. As we were sitting here, I just quickly opened that document and put that 2% in to see where we came in at, and that did put us at $132,000. So we're hitting real close to it. So that is obtainable. So I think we're good at going with 120,000 there. Then we had no changes on fees revenues. So if you look at the bottom here, you're going to see that we have a decrease in our local revenues due to the fact that we did reduce the millage rate, and that's a $60,000 decrease. State revenues are monies that come from the state and are distributed to the district. We're at 42.6% there. I believe it was May 8th, they gave the new distribution amounts with the new ADMs for the basic ed subsidy, as long as the state passes the budget as what is planned right now. So that decreased our basic ed subsidy by $1,418. But it also increased our special education subsidy by $1,996. So there's changes there. And then the state property tax reduction, that fluctuates a little bit every year, and that is due to our people that work in Philadelphia. That changes just about $1,000 each way each year. So that reduced by $302 because that number also came out just last week. And other income from the state, you'll see that's a decrease, but if you remember, that is your PSERS reimbursement and your FICA reimbursement. And as you will see in some of our expenditure slides, that we've had a decrease in wages, so our reimbursement will then decrease. So our total state revenue has decreased $7,474. Federal revenue, these are monies that generate from federal sources, made available to school districts through grants, state channels, and other agencies conducting programs throughout the school district. That's 1.3%. The information here provided tonight is not updated. We have received a little bit of updated information just on Title I. We have not received anything on Title II or Title IV, but Title I is decreasing about $7,000 to about $293, I think it was right around there. or
Yeah, I think so.
291, it was right, so I think it was about a $7,000 decrease, that was just yesterday, or,
That's where they put everything into a bucket and just go.
yeah.
Makes no sense.
Not that much.
So that's not updated on here because this budget was put together
Well, that's just a projection.
before, yes.
That's from our regional coordinator, that's just a projection, that isn't even the final number from them, but that's the first time that we see it, is usually, beginning of May.
So that has not been updated, that will be updated, for the final budget in June. So you see no changes here. We'll move on to expenditures. This is what you've seen this graph before. Expenditures are all activities dealing for instruction or dealing directly with the interaction between teachers and students, including related costs which can be directly attributed to the program of the instruction. So that's 57.5. And again, I'll just talk about the things that have changed. You'll see the wages. The wages and the benefits have changed here. This shows a decrease in the regular programs of $41,344. This decrease is due to the fact that teachers are retiring and we're starting new teachers and they are starting at a lower step than what the teacher retiring is. You'll see the employee benefit does show an increase though, and that's because when we budget for these employees, we budget them with the highest level of healthcare, which is a family plan. Now, after we determine who we're hiring, that person may come in and say, I'm single, I just need a single healthcare plan, which will make changes to that. So as we make decisions on who we're hiring and, what kind of healthcare, that will also change if we have that information before the final budget. But that might not happen before then. So, you see the decrease here. You see an increase here, and this is in your special programs. You'll see the increase in the wages. This is due to the fact of adding the aides in, a couple extra aides, and you'll see a decrease in benefits because you'll see that a full-time person will now be substituted with with 3 part-time people, so we lose the need for the benefit package of insurance. So the wage increase that we see in the top for the 100s is then actually a decrease once we take out the benefits. And then you'll see the 300, this is due to, we received the new IU contract, which increased the budget, and in this category, it increased the budget of $119,976. When we originally budgeted for the IU contract for the March presentation, we averaged a 5 to 7% across the board for the contract. When we received the contract, we were at about 18 to 19% increase over the prior year. So we have worked a few things out with that budget, and we're still continuing to work out a couple of things with it. But right now, this is where we're at with that budget. So as you'll see, the special programs show an increase of $113,390. This is your LCTC services, and we got the updated budget that we have, and we got the updated cost per student. We have updated numbers on the number of students attending. So you'll see right here we have an increase in the budget of $12,102. This is other instructional programs. You see no change here. Support services. Services that are provide administrative, technical, such as guidance and health, and logistical support to facilitate and enhance the instruction, 27%. Here, you'll see that you see an increase of $2,350. This is also to the IU contract for special services. So that has the same thing that we saw on the previous slide with the larger increase. Here, this is instructional staff services. You'll see wages decreased $5,595. The benefits increased by $170. This is due to someone retiring, and we're hiring someone at the bottom step. And then also the employee benefit increase though would be because the employee is on a husband-wife benefit package, but we're budgeting for a family benefit package. Professional and technical services, you'll see a little bit of an increase here of $2,435. Again, we go back to the contract. Also,
The IU contract.
yes, the IU contract. You'll see a total instructional staff service decrease of $2,990 here. Okay, administrative services. Here you'll see a decrease in administrative services of $6,864, an increase in the employee benefits, someone retiring that, again, a lower step, but did not have health care, now adding in a family health care package. So you'll see it's a total increase of $13,586. This is pupil health services. You'll see here an increase of $37,345. This is a combination of a IU contract increase plus something that was amiss in the original budget for some students that we need to purchase additional nursing services for. So that shows an increase of $37,345. Business services stayed the same. Operation and maintenance of plant of services stayed the same. Transportation services stayed the same. Non-instructional, you see an increase in wages of $6,000. This is for the coaches, which also you see the increase in the PSERS and the FICA, which gives you a total increase of $8,400. Debt services, the final category, which is 13.4%. You see no changes there. And this is our budgetary reserve. There was no changes there. So, up here you will see the 2017-18 final numbers, our total revenues and our total expenditures. You'll see that we did have greater revenue than expenditures in 17-18 of $974,857, bringing our total fund balance, which is right down here, to $3,387,628. At that time, $449,550 was assigned. So, looking ahead at where we're gonna be at the end of 18-19, this is a projection of where I believe we're gonna be by looking at what we have currently spent, what revenues we currently have, and what looks like we still have outstanding for the 18-19 year. Total revenue estimates coming in at $29,495,145. Total expenditures coming in at $29,291,827, leaving us with excess over revenue, or our revenues exceeding our expenditures of $203,318. Taking that to our beginning fund balance and adding that in will put us at $3,590,946. And we will have at the bottom here, you can see what will be committed or assigned at $359,550. So, looking at the proposed budget here, we have total revenues of $29,772,128. Expenditures just over $30 million at $30,050,779, leaving us with our expenditures exceeding our revenues by $78,651. At the end of the school year 19-20, we should have a fund balance of $3,312,295. And our assign has stayed the same. I didn't budget any assigned funds in the 19-20 school year. So, summary, it proposes a 0.3 mil real estate tax increase, and it uses $278,651 from the unassigned fund balance. Tonight, we're going to adopt the proposed final budget, and on June 11th, we would adopt the final budget. Questions?
Yeah, back up a few screens there, Brandy.
So where?
Keep going back. Back. Right here. The proposed budget leaves an ending fund balance of $3,312,295, correct?
Yes.
That is over 8% of our budget, correct?
You would go by the unassigned number down here, the two.
Okay, the 2,952,000 is still over 8%, which is the Pennsylvania PDE's. The law says with a budget our size that it should not exceed 8%, and that's exceeding 8%.
Correct.
And Ron, you'll remember we did start talking about some of the things that we were going to be doing. I talked about the technology purchases that we were going to be making this year. I talked about some of the other things that we have a need for. We briefly talked about a 5-year educational understanding, so we're gonna hit that a little bit harder too.
So the shortfall is the
$278,651.
That's what you're taking out of the fund balance?
Yes.
Now, I'm talking about the shortfall after you take that out of the fund balance is what, 200 and, what was it, 213,000? The 0.3 mils brings in what, 200 and what?
Brandy, I think the number was $60,000 difference in.
213. Right, so, which means that we have a shortfall of 213,000 after using 278 from the fund balance, correct?
If we didn't raise taxes,
Yes.
so we're asking.
Yeah, we'd have a shortfall if we did raise taxes. So,
You would have to add that amount to,
to the 278,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
So Brandy, on that question, the difference between 0.46 mils and 0.3 mils, I think it amounted to, I think on an earlier slide, it showed we would take in $60,000 less.
no, that was not for, that's total for all the local revenues. That wasn't for,
Somewhere-
it's 125,000.
What was it?
125.
Okay, 125,
Mhm.
okay. good.
But see, we increased these other revenues,
Okay,
so it offset it
okay, and that's what took it
to the
to
60, yep, to the
that I
60
referenced.
here,
Okay,
yep.
okay, thank you.
I wanna thank you, Brandy, for bringing it down, as we requested to bring the tax increase down. Personally, I think that's a good compromise, not trying to go in the hole too much, because we do have a plan to improve the education for the students and technology that we need, but not going in excess. And that almost balances out with what the excess that you think you might have from this year. And I'm comfortable going in a deficit a little bit with the excess fund balance that we have. And hopefully we don't have to use it. Hopefully we get more interest revenue.
And I would agree with you, Dr. Mathers, I'd be comfortable with it too, but I think that we need to let it be known that we're optimistic and it's a projection and it's a guess and we hope these numbers pan out in our favor, and if not, then we may need to make an adjustment next year. But I find those numbers comfortable.
My problem is, up until this year, the district's raised taxes 11 out of 14 years for a total of 4.87 mils. That's $487 per $100,000 assessment in a 14-year period. We raise taxes again, you're talking 12 out of 15 years that there's been a tax increase. And I realize there was 6 years that sadly, the increases didn't go towards education, but, that's not the taxpayer's fault. And it's something that we can't go back and correct. If we have to move forward, I agree, but the concern is the continued increases in the taxes for those people on fixed incomes, those people retired that go couple years here and there without any increases in their Social Security. There's people out there that only get Social Security that didn't have any retirement, and that concerns me. I don't want to shortchange education, not by a long shot. I don't want to shortchange it, but we have to think about the people that's supplying the money to the district too.
Mr. Snell, I'm a little confused on your 6 years of tax increases that did not benefit education. What would that be?
There was 6 years of tax increases that went strictly to bring up the revenue to a point where the debt could be paid on. That's what I'm talking about. Those increases were for debt service, not for education. None of that, those 6 years, none of that money went into education. It went into a building, don't get me wrong, which
Would that not be education?
that has nothing to do with the education of the students. It just gives them a place to get an education.
Would that, I'm not gonna carry it on with you, I just disagree.
Okay, I agree to disagree.
Those 6 years did benefit education. Absolutely.
The 6 years was predicated on a table that showed that the 1.9 mils being stretched over a 6-year period. In fact, the millage needed for the project to fund it was actually 1.6 mils, so it really didn't stretch out for 6 years. But your point's still conceptually correct. Well, there was at least 4 years where it was just raising money for the mortgage payment. You're right.
It was to get our revenue up to a point where we could afford to make the yearly payments on a debt.
Yep. Yep.
I think we're, now's the time to put this towards education. And I think it's, we have to step up and we have to perform that and we have to do that. We can't just project or hope that we come out where we wanna be. So I agree to disagree that, for the amount that, the increase would be, I don't think that it really makes a whole lot of difference in somebody's pocketbook.
Mine's gonna go up $4 a month. I can absorb that. And my house is a little bit above average, so.
A little more than a gallon of gas. But there's a lot of things that education-wise we need to use the money for. There's a lot of things coming down the road that we're gonna have to just, when Joe shared it, all the information on all the buildings that need, work done on them. There's a lot of things that need to be done, that are gonna continue to be done. And, I just, I don't wanna see them raised any more than anybody else, but the bottom line is that you're gonna have to deal with it sooner or later.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here as a board member and say that, the people out there that's only getting $1,000 to $1,200 income a month, I'm not gonna sit here and say that $30 doesn't mean anything to them, because until you're in that situation, don't say it's only a gallon of gas or whatever, because I've seen people in that situation and it's not fun for them, and it isn't even fun for me to see those people that are in that situation. And believe it or not, there are a lot of people in this district that are in that situation. So, to you and me, Danny, $30 isn't much. But to some people out there, it is.
I don't dispute that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that eventually it's gonna come full circle. It always does. It's gonna be an inevitable thing you're gonna have to eventually have to deal with. And a little bit at a time is a lot better than a lot at a time. That's just my feeling on it.
What I'd like to do is open it up to public comment about the budget issue right now. If you wanna talk about the budget, we'll do public comment now, because we are going to take a vote. So I give you 3 minutes, and I'm gonna hold you to 3 minutes, because, so if you wanna talk about it, come to the podium, state your name and address. Because we're gonna move forward on the proposed budget. Nobody? Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move forward with the proposed budget.
Motion to approve.
We're not there. Sorry, you guys are just so anxious to get out of here.
Sorry.
No, we're not.
They're anxious to eat their short cake.
Okay, sorry. All right. So superintendent's report.
I would love to thank Nutrition Group for being here, for providing these cute little, and they smell wonderful, just sitting there in front of us. Is there any questions? They wanted to be here this evening to provide the board an opportunity to ask them anything. And is there anything you would like to share, ladies? Kristen or Patty?
The treat that you have is actually a Tasty Bite special, and the elementary students will be getting that next Thursday. That's part of their lunch. It's a fruit component, so they'll enjoy that.
I like the way you think it's a fruit.
Thank you.
And it tasted just as good as it smelled.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to share that we had a meeting with the nutrition group, and one of the things that they will be bringing is birthday cake once a month to the kids, so everybody gets a treat as a way of having the kids come together and celebrate together. So, very kind. Thank you very much for doing that. PSSAs are over for this year. The sighs of relief from the table. We're still in Keystones, so there's not as many sighs as there could be in June, but we're almost there through the state mandated testing. And thank you very much to the teachers, to the administrators, and to our students for pulling through the tests and doing a beautiful job as always. The middle school band concert will be next Wednesday. The first one for 5th and 6th grade is at 6 p.m. The next one is at, is it 7:30? I want to make sure I get that right. 7 or 7? It's 7:30. Yes, it's 7:30. Sorry for 7:30. It's 7:30. So, if you would like to have some entertainment on a weeknight, it is a great way to spend your evening.
It's tomorrow.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's tomorrow night.
It's tomorrow.
My
My
calendar now is
apologies. I'm so sorry. It's tomorrow night. You still have time to go. So, I was getting my weeks confused. We've been doing a lot of interviewing. My apologies. We did receive the second Safe to Say grant component, which is Part B, in the amount of $194,000. So we are very fortunate to have some additional upgrades to our buildings coming, as well as some safety equipment and ALICE training as part of that. We're also hoping that we can do some mental health components as part of the student day. And that will be something that we'll be talking to professionals about to see what we think they should have as part of a classroom component. And that is it for me. I'll keep it short.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion? We have a supplemental to add. Can I have a motion to add the supplemental?
So move.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Thank you.
All right. I am going to pull some out since we have some special items this evening. Under G1, approval of the election of Daniel Albert as temporary school board president for the purpose of signing his daughter's high school diploma.
Motion to approve.
Any questions?
Well, I think we have, I don't know about this.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. So
G2, approval of the election of Susan Geary as temporary school board president for the purpose of signing her daughter's high school diploma.
Motion to approve.
Second.
any questions?
Comment. Make sure Susan's name is spelled correctly there. It's Barry here, but
Oh.
it's Beery, not Barry.
My
Barry, it's not her.
Didn't catch that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. We can lump G3 through G8.
Could we pull out G7 and do that separate, please?
Sure, that is correct, sure. So G3, 4, 5, 6, and 8.
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions? All those in favor say
I
aye.
have a comment.
Okay.
Just real quick, every year Faith United Methodist Church really helps us out, and I just wanted to extend a thank you, being a kindergarten teacher, and what that means. I just would like to thank them for doing that for us and for our kids.
This is the first community in my tenure anywhere that I have ever seen that kind of support.
11 or 12 years this year.
Outstanding, yeah. Yeah, we can go some.
Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it.
G7, approval of the Lycoming Career and Technology Center 2019-20 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Yes. Do we have a number, a projected number on the students yet, Brandy? On the-
37.
No, I mean total. Total for
the 5 districts.
For the 5 districts.
300 and,
It was in the budget.
No, it says 290, it just says, it gives the price if it is 290. I was wondering if we have a projected number from them.
last week I saw 30 something, but it changes, and it was, that's where it was, it's 300 and, yeah, just over 300, and that does change a little bit, but it's just off a couple people for the whole program is off a couple people from last year.
And I had gotten with you, Christina, a few questions. Did you get some answers back on
The
that?
answers, I do have a few answers. Ron had asked why certain individuals had life insurance and
Income protection.
income protection based on their contracts. That was what we found out there. There are those who do not have that as part of their benefit package.
Right, but my question was, up until this year, it was never budgeted.
Right, on the line items, I can't explain that. I can certainly try to ask them again to see what that might be.
And the other question is, they have $32,227 in travel in that budget. Did you find out anything on that?
I apologize, Ron, I did not on their travel. I know when we looked at it, there was several categories with, and I think the largest one was a majority.
15,000.
Yes, and that was a majority of the teachers. I forget which category, but it was a lot more teachers than it was just an individual.
The 3 large ones were 15,000, 10,000, and 4,000.
Right. Right. I will make sure that I reach out and email everyone what those answers are.
Excuse me, is that the travel budget for LCTC?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the shows they go to, or the competitions that they go to.
And it's also travel for the teachers to attend meetings in schools too. So a lot of them come to our IEP meetings and so forth, which we're required to invite them. So, a little bit adds up.
Does hotel fees and that, is that included in travel budget? Would that raise it up to?
That's what we do, but I can't comment on what I don't know what they do without asking them.
Yeah, it's for the competitions.
But I'm
they
sure
go
that's
to.
the Skills USA.
Yeah.
Competitions is the bulk of that money. They also pay for, when they do the recruitment visits, the transportation to bring the visiting schools in, is on them. So when we send our 9th graders down, they pay for the buses. It's their buses that come up and get our kids.
Okay.
And they do that for each of the sending districts. So that's probably that $4,000 chunk of money there.
Right.
But again, I'm speculating, that's.
Right.
But again, it's for 5 school districts.
Yes.
And I realize that, it's split between 5 school districts. It was part of their budget and I questioned it.
Okay, Ronnie.
Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
Moving on. Under personnel, may I please separate P1 and P2, and then if okay, we could process the rest together. P1, approval for the following resignations: Evelyn Nguyen and Janine Monas.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
And P2, approval of the following retirements effective at the end of the 2018-19 school year: Carol Hetler, paraprofessional with 27 years of service, and Carrie McCourt, secretary with 17 years of service. I would like to thank them for their years of service and dedication to this district and for helping our students each and every day that they have been here. Fantastic leads.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
Move to approve.
We don't have to accept it then, you know.
Won't change.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
So if we could do P3 through P8.
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
P1, approval of Promised Land busing rates for April 2019.
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
Under academics, approval for graduation of those members of the senior class of 2019 who will have met all state and district requirements as of June the 1st, 2019. 130 potential graduates as of May the 14th, 2019, with special dates for the senior class as follows. The baccalaureate for them will be June the 2nd at 7. The award ceremony by invitation only will be June the 5th at 7. Commencement will be Thursday, June the 6th at 7 p.m. in Memorial Stadium.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
A2, approval for student 220090 to be expelled from Montoursville Area High School as per the adjudication.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
Under Budget and Finance, BF1, approval of the proposed general fund budget in the amount of, do you have it now? Because mine
I do. $30,050,779.
$30,050,779 for the fiscal year 2019-20, including salary and work schedules as proposed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? Brandy, I'd like to do a roll call, please.
Mr. Albert?
No, and, just for the record, the only reason that is no is just because of what we have in front of us as far as education goes and providing all our students with what they deserve and need to have, and, the little bit of the increase, I think it's worth that. And that's the reason why I'm voting no. Thank you.
Dr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Kunkel?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Mrs. Marriott?
Yes.
Dr. Mathers?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Mr. Schimmel?
Yes.
And Mr. Snow?
No.
2, approval to hire appraiser Richard Driswicki to conduct a commercial appraisal on the Lowe's property in connection with the Lowe's tax appeal. Costs to be shared with the Montoursville Borough and Lycoming County.
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions?
Yes. And I realize it's to be shared with Montoursville Borough and Lycoming County, but my question is there a set price on a commercial appraisal, or can't they give a set price?
I believe that there was a set price that was provided through Tom Marshall, and then there was an hourly rate. He answered this the last time that he was here. It would be a set price and then an hourly rate if he needed to be present for any testimonies.
2 different hourly rates based on courtroom or
Right. Robin,
private.
I haven't seen it, but that's the way they normally do it.
Right.
Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
Moving to the supplemental under personnel. P9, approval of the following retirements effective at the end of the 2018-19 school year. Brad Deacon, who is our teacher and has been for 27 years. He is a wonderful man, a very talented individual, and he will be sorely missed in this district.
Move to approve.
Second. Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
P10, approval of the following additions to the teacher substitute list for the 2018-19 school year. Ben McInnes, Tech Education.
Move to approve.
Second. Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
P11, approval for Andrew Cease to work per diem at $30 per hour as needed.
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions?
Anticipated estimate on how many hours we might need?
This will go on through the audit season, so it just depends on the level of training that we need in our new hire, depends on how fast he catches on to things. So
50, 100, 200, what ballpark? We'll hold you
last
to it.
time we did this, it was under $5,000.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.
And that is it for this evening.
Committee report. Thank you, Mr. Conklin. PSBA, Dr. Mathers, do you have anything?
I have a telephone call scheduled for Thursday with Shane Pagnotti, Member Services Manager. He just discuss the, services offered as benefits of our membership. So he just asked to meet with me. Do that via phone call. Let you know what I learned.
Thank you. Policy Committee, no, I don't believe we have anything going on in the Policy Committee right now. IU report, you have a handout that I passed out that'll bring you up to date on, what's going on there from the April meeting. LCTC, Mr. Logue, anything?
Yeah, I represented Montoursville and the other districts last week, picking the Student of the Year. And it was a very interesting day. And that will be presented on the 22nd at their graduation down at LCTC. And Joe has a car we're trying to give away to him. And we think that's going to happen. But let's see, that's about it.
Thank you, Bob. Budget, Dr. Berry, and we need to add to that. Oh, did I skip it? Oh, Memorial Garden, yes, I forgot. Huh?
Need to thank the group of folks that we had. We had like 13 wheelbarrows, so yeah, bundle of kids. I don't know what the number was. Mr. Ulmer was there, so thank you to the Key Club, the Borough, Kiwanis, school board. I mean, it was amazing. The kids were, and thank you to the leaders who spoke, and because these kids weren't even born when this all happened, so they don't know the history, so it's nice to see. Dan, you have a comment
Most
there?
of the student help was the Key Club.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mazzani and Mrs. Tira, their leadership, they're just, it's fantastic.
Yeah, there was and they're also bringing the
Builders Club.
Builders Club, thank you.
Yes, the Builders Club.
From McCall to be part of it, so thank you to the whole group of people.
Done? Is it building and grounds, Mr. Albert?
I have nothing to report, which is a good thing.
Question on building and grounds. The deficiency report is still not on the website.
I know, I thought about it right before this meeting.
Montoursville Foundation, Mr. Schmidt.
They didn't meet, I couldn't make it, and I guess that's all I have to say.
That's all we'll get. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Conkle?
We're gonna proceed into public comment. 3 minutes, state your name, address.
Marie Klein, 1009 Tool Street. As you all know, last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, but once again, I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize Nurses Week, and our 4 awesome nursing staff that we have in our building that provide services to our students. So it's pretty important, and especially in today's world, we have kids that are sicker, both, physically, also mentally. So I think that's really important, and I'm really glad that the district continues to support full-time nursing staff in every building. Thank you.
Moving up. I guess, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Yes or no? Martin Belzer, Eldridge Township. The cornerstone? Is it in?
It is not in, Martin. It is not in.
Can it be put in? It's taken longer than it takes to build the school. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have some teachers sitting here, so from the board, thank you for, your service and dedication, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Anybody else from the board? Yeah, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We need to give it away.